Back here.
Joseph McCarthy from WSYX-WTTE in New York.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk to the financial impact that this situation has had on your department, overtime, any rented equipment? Just if you could maybe subject to any financial impact that this has had on your office.
Well, in talking with my EMA director this morning, you know, there is some funding there available for those things. We're only in October, so you know, it's hard to say how your budget's going to be till the end of the year. So, as I said earlier, I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that right now.
Sheriff,
Back here.
from WBNS, two questions of getting back to the picture. Who else was in a position to take that picture outside of your office? And if you found it was somebody from the sheriff's office, what would the disciplinary action be?
Well, let me just say this. We're going to investigate that. We're currently documenting who all was up there. We'll make that list, and we'll do as much as we can to find out who did that. If it was somebody from my office, then the appropriate disciplinary action will be taken. We have a contract at our office, and we'll go through the proper channels to deal with that. So, you have another question? Okay, thank you. Over here.
Yesterday, Jack Hanna mentioned that you've been receiving threatening calls for his support of your decision to shoot to kill. Could you go through, obviously you didn't have a lot of time to think about that order, and you probably didn't even have time to consult the officials at the zoo. What went through your mind as the situation became clear and you had to make that decision?
The only thing that went through my mind was public safety. When I got the call of this and it was en route here, you know, I knew at some point we could have 1, 2, 3 animals loose at this farm. But when I heard the reports and the radio traffic and took direct traffic with the officers on the scene, realized that not only did we have animals out of the pen, but we had animals outside the fenced area, we knew we had a problem. And with the number of animals that were being seen from the roadway that is in open pasture fields, had no indication of what was in the woods already, and we had no idea what time this all started and who had a head start on us. So I made that order that the animals outside needed to be contained, taken down, and if there were animals on the inside of the fenced area that were coming out, needed to be taken down for public safety.
Have you had any problems with protesters, or have you had any reports of them trying to disrupt activities at the wild?
I can tell you that I have personally spoke to, what's her name? Barbara at the Wilds. They are not on a lockdown. They have no protesters there. And you know, anybody trespassing down there or causing problems, we'll deal with accordingly. I've had no threats towards me. We've had some calls to our office left on voicemail. Look, this is a very volatile situation. We understand there's people frustrated and disappointed and mad. We are. We're the ones that's been put in this situation. We're the ones that had to deal with it at the time.
Sheriff, can you talk about a person arrested with a carcass?
That's one of the things. It's a pending criminal investigation. I'm not ready to comment on that. We debated bringing that up today. We will be possibly releasing some of that later on as the investigation continues. For those who know, the first night out, we did have some individuals that tried to steal one of the dead animals before we had got them recovered. Their identity was we obtained that. They were taken into custody. They weren't booked in. We'll approach that as we normally do about meeting with Mike Haddix, our prosecutor. You know, I've been on the phone with Mike. I left him out of my list. His office with Bob Smith and Bud Chess made several phone calls to the prosecutor. He is very obtainable for me to get to and gives us all kinds of advice on this case. It was almost, he probably should have just come out here with me to a certain point, but we will have Mike review the case, and we'll see if there's any charges that can be filed. If there's charges that can be filed, they will be filed.
What do they want to do with it?
Well, I don't want to get off on the wrong foot here, and I want to keep my eye on the ball. But you know, there's been calls about, you know, taxidermists and trying to get these animals to, you know, these things. Hey, they're exotic animals. We know what we had to shoot. There's a lot of people that would pay a lot of money to have these animals.
Sheriff, what was the most recent interaction you had with Mr. Thompson before this happened?
I don't have that date that we were last out there.
In general.
The last interaction I had with him, we were out there inspecting pens, inspecting the property for animals.
And then
No, I don't even want to speculate that. I would say at least it's been in my term, so I can tell you the last 3 years.
Was that a confrontational situation?
No, I never had a confrontational situation with Mr. Thompson. He knew my father from where my father worked here. I knew him. He knew who I was. He knew I was a sheriff. As I said, Mr. Thompson has never really caused our agency a big problem, other than the problems that are caused by these animals. And you know, I never had a confrontational issue with him.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Has the governor given you any assurances that the laws are going to be changed?
Well, I don't know that he can give me assurances over the phone. There's a lot of things.
You had a conversation with him?
Oh, yes, last night. As I said earlier today, I had a very good conversation with Governor Kasich. He called pledging his support for what we did, and basically admitted to me that the laws needed to be changed, the guidelines, the restrictions needed to be enforced and be reinforced. So he gave me, and again, I don't want to put words in a governor's mouth, but from the indications he gave me, there's going to be some changes made, and hopefully by the end of the year.
The understanding is that they were reevaluating this repeal of the ban, and
Yeah,
they're
there's
going to speed up that process.
well, there's been a task force in place. They've been working on that. Jack Hanna's made the statement that they were about 6 weeks out from having some type of.
They were. Do you think that'll be sped up?
Could be. As I said, with every action, there's a reaction, and hope this is a positive reaction to what we did here.
Sheriff Lutz, if Mr. Thompson had lived, what kind of charges would he face for doing something like this?
Haven't even thought about that. I don't even know what would be in the higher revised code that Mr. Haddix could come up with. Any other questions?
Did you accept the invitation to be on the task force?
I'll do anything I have to do to make this not ever happen again.
Chris Tonieri, Pittsburgh Tribune Review. Yesterday, Jack Hanna also mentioned that some of the deputies are going to have to go home and have a conversation with their kids and their families on why they have a she-tiger and a lion. Have you, not to pry into personal life, but have you had that conversation with your family? And if not, how do you explain this to people?
Well, I think I was a cop's son, so you know, it's different when your father's a cop. But as I did last night, you just basically warn them that the kids could say stuff to them based on what their parents are saying stuff to them. I think all cops' kids are a little bit different. They go through a lot of different things. So you just try to prepare your kids for the best. Some kids are going to say things maybe from getting it from their parents and not really meaning or knowing what it means. So you just, as any parent would do, you try to prepare your kid for what he's going to deal with in the public.
Sheriff, did you say that you've gotten calls?
From people that would like to take these animals to taxidermists.
Your office has gotten calls from people wanting to
What's
take
that?
the animals.
Yeah, we've gotten calls and emails about what were going to happen to the animals. Could they be obtained for these types of things? Yes.
Sheriff, any indication that he was breeding these animals for sale?
Brian, it's a great question. I don't think we saw anything there that would let us believe that. It's very possible. Some of these pens were very big. Some of these animals, there were multi-animals in those pens, so that would have been very easy with the number of animals he had. Whether he was doing that or not, I don't know.
Sheriff, considering the interest in the bodies of the animals, what are you doing up at the property to keep it secure?
Well, the location hasn't been disclosed. It's 73 acres. Anybody caught on that property looking for it will be charged with criminal trespassing. That'll be up to Marion to help watch her property, and hopefully, hopefully nobody would be that morbid that they would want to go do that. But I can guarantee you one thing: if it does happen, we'll pursue them to the greatest length to charge them.
Can you talk about your last interaction with her?
Um,
What she was like?
Yes, I had 2 interactions with Marion. One was on the phone. That was, I believe, and the days are all running together, so don't quote me. But I believe that was Tuesday. The interview on the phone was basically about the remaining animals that were still at the house. And again, she had just lost her husband. She had just lost some animals. You have to understand that these animals were like kids to her. She probably spent more time with these animals than some parents do spend with their kids. She was very concerned about where the animals were going to go and why they were being taken. The last in-person interaction was just very briefly. That was inside this trailer with Jack. Jack Hanna led that conversation more than I did. She was very distraught, as we would figure she would be. Our hearts go out to her for her having to go through this.
Is she living back on the property?
Mr. Hill.
Matt, I just want to, as a former county commissioner and now state representative and a citizen of this county, I just want to thank you and everybody with DMA, the State Highway Patrol. I think you've done a fabulous job in squelching a situation that could have been really devastating to this community. And I want to thank you and your men for responding the way you did. Great job you did.
All right, Brian, thank you for your support.
Sheriff, back to the breeding question.
What's that?
Do you have a sense yet of where these animals were coming from? Had he bred any of them? We know he bought some of them, maybe he rescued some. Where did all these animals come from?
Well, as you said, the only thing I know is probably what you know. I don't have any records of what he has up there, if there was any records kept. We're not there every day, so we don't know when the animals are coming in. I've heard that some were rescued. I've heard that some were bought at auction. You know, I can't answer that question on where they came from. That wasn't any concern of mine at this point.
Sheriff, what's going to happen with the property? Is anyone living there now, or will someone be living there soon?
Yeah, the property was turned over to Marion.
Is she living back there?
I can't answer that. Yeah.
Sheriff, is there any chance
The what?
we'd be able?
Okay.
Is there any chance at all we'd be able to interview the deputies who were the first on the scene?
Deputy Mary provided some interviews yesterday at the request of a couple news agencies. He is not available today right now. You know, Jonathan come back out and work 16 hours again last night, and he's home sleeping. He's not due back out for a while on the shift. So later on down the line, there could be some possibilities of that, yes.
Do you know whether Marion Thompson will be making any public statements?
No idea. I have never been in a position to ask her to do that, and would never do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, let me say thank you to the media. We've tried to provide a good spot for you. Sorry about the mud. You've been very patient with us, and we appreciate all the cooperation and consideration. Thank you. One quick thing. We do have Andy Roberts in charge of our GPS here, and GIS here in the county has did some maps of that property.